Welcome to New England Ski Journal's Basecamp podcast, presented by Country Ski and Sport. Ski season is here, and it's time to gear up at Country Ski and Sport. Shop now for your best preseason deals at any of their 3 locations in Hanson, Quincy, and Westwood, Mass. Or shop online at countryski.com.
Hey, everybody. Welcome into the New England Ski Journal Basecamp podcast. I'm Mike Specian, your host, with my co-host and editor of the New England Ski Journal,
Keith Pearson.
Keith Pearson, how are you?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
You know what? I'm doing pretty good. I'm getting jonesing.
We're getting there. Some trees are starting to give a little signs of the next season. Sunday, recently. First flakes. Good start. We're getting there.
You know what? Air conditioner is off now. Windows are open at night. Football's being played and baseball's almost done. Every single bit of it is getting us closer to ski season.
We had the U.S. Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame announcements come out recently.
Well, I want to hear about those. Yeah, we just had Justin Koski on a couple episodes ago. In regards to the U.S. Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame, what's going on? Because the inductees were just announced, weren't they?
They were announced on the 11th. They had their golf tournament up at Lake Placid. We had Sarah Bill Meyer, Paralympian from Maine.
That's awesome. Hey, I want to give kudos to the U.S. Disabled Olympic team.
Yes,
the Paralympic team, because they kicked some butt.
In Paris.
Yes, in Paris.
Yes.
Well, we're talking about it. What else is going on? Who else?
Olympic gold medalist Hannah Kearney from Vermont. Moguls.
All right. You know what mountain she skied out of? She's a Waterville girl.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, Waterville. Yep. Hannah, way to go.
And then Chuck and Jan Perkins from the Alpine Shop.
Well, it's really funny because Chuck and Jan... anybody that's driven the access road going up to Stowe, on the left-hand side heading up, you'll see the Stowe Lodge there and that's Chuck and Jan Perkins also. Just incredible people for the New England ski community and here in the national ski community.
So, yeah, they'll go into the museum, into the building that's named after them already.
Yep.
And they have their hands in the history of the sport, considering how involved they are with the Vermont Ski Museum as well.
100%. They are so important to the New England ski community as a whole, and they deserve these accolades that are coming their way.
Big induction will be late March up at Herb Brooks Arena in Lake Placid.
Yep, it's coming up. So anybody that wants to get up there to see some great New England inductees, go online to the U.S. Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame and, get some tickets. Make your reservations now.
It also leads into who we have coming up later, because we're going to be talking ski boots. And among the inductees, Denny and Chris Hanson. You are far more knowledgeable about ski boots than I am. I put them on. Are they comfortable? Do they flex right? And then I'm good to go. You made a living out of it for a while.
Oh,
Who are the Hansons, and how does that lead us into our guests today?
Yeah, I did make a living out of ski boots, out of skis. And still do to some degree or another. It's my passion. Ski boots are the one thing that makes or breaks an experience and a skier. Both. Not just one, but both. The experience and where the skier will go. Denny Hanson and Chris Hanson. Any of the old timers, Keith, you're not old enough. You're not old enough. But any of the old timers will realize that Hanson boots were the thing at one point. Okay. When we came out of leather boots and plastics became the norm, Back in I would say the late 70s, very early 80s, Hanson boots were the number one high-selling boots here in this country. They were on fire. U.S. made, no less. Okay? Everything was happening here. They came out with, I always use this term, the better mousetrap, but a mousetrap that worked. So they really created something totally unique in the marketplace out of, I believe it was Colorado. But, Denny worked for Dow Chemical. And, plastics are Dow Chemical. Plastics are DuPont. That's what they produce or did produce. And he created something super, super unique. Of course, the boot did not make it in the long run, but it set a new standard in the ski boot world. And I can remember selling Reichly Rivas and lots of them, which were something similar to what a Hanson was. But, times changed. What are you skiing for a ski boot?
I got a Del Bello, and I'm swimming in it now.
What Del Bello? Do you know?
Not off the top of my head. Between November and May, I do, but I don't. It's probably 4 years old too.
Is it a 4-buckle boot?
Yeah, it's a 4.
It's a 4-buckle, okay.
Yeah.
Or I was going to say a Cabrio, because Del Bello makes a 3-piece shell and a 2-piece shell boot. But boots wear out. Not necessarily the shell, but I have seen many shells fall apart on the hill because plastics do have a useful life, like everything else, your bike helmet. But liners stretch out. Ski boots, it's the one avenue or the one piece of the ski industry now that has not faltered coming out of COVID. I don't know if you knew that. Skis, if you remember during COVID, everybody said, you better get it now, otherwise you're not getting it.
Right.
Okay. Everybody said that because we had a massive infrastructure situation, transportation situation, manufacturing situation, yada, yada. And everybody went outside. But ski boots overcame the fact that, as things changed, there was a lot of product in the marketplace, whether it be jackets, skis, or whatever. But ski boots, there were not. And why do you think that is?
People just don't think to change them as much.
Well, ski boots, it's a little bit different. Everybody's looking for the fit that they don't have. So the
devil is better than the one you don't.
Well, the bottom line is, you just said it. Your ski boots are you're flopping around in them.
I'm getting to that point. I've gotten my life, more than my lifespan out of them.
Right, but everybody is looking for a warmer ski boot. Everybody is looking for a better fitting ski boot. Everybody's looking for a more comfortable ski boot. And, unfortunately, the boot fitting population has the old guys like me aren't boot fitting as much anymore. So they're getting into the wrong boot and they're always looking for the next best thing. So, it's kind of interesting here, but back to Hanson, they were the last of the U.S. manufacturing here in this country of ski boots on any scale. We have Dodge boots up in the Stowe area, which is a small manufacturer. Dodge, carbon boot, fantastic. Custom fit, fantastic. We have places like that here in this country, but we are going to talk to somebody that is looking to bring manufacturing back here in a ski boot, in a brand new ski boot, and do it at scale.
It's going to be interesting to see how they explain it, how Rex explains it, but it's just goes to show you how different it is compared to what what we've been had on our feet now for the last, 5-10 years.
5-10.
I mean, just the evolution of the boot.
The overlap ski boot has not changed. Even with the addition of BOA, it's still an overlap ski boot, has not changed since, oh my goodness, since the moving from leather boots in reality, and Cabrio ski boots, otherwise the three-piece shells of the Reichley Molitor or K2 today, or full tilt, I should say, the full tilt built boots, the Del Bello Krypton boots, and the Roxa boots, which is a newer brand in this country, they haven't changed in 25 years. So this is really pretty radical, especially being U.S. manufacturing.
Should be interesting.
So coming up next, we're going to have Rex and Karen Deitesfeld, who are the founders of Zay Boots out of Colorado. It's going to be a fun talk to find out, how Zay is going to change the ski boot fitting world. So we'll be right back after this commercial break. The Button Ski Hanger is a patented ski storage fixture that safely stores alpine skis regardless of length, width, or shape. This means that your fat powder skis can now be stored next to your narrower carving skis, your race skis, and your kid skis. For more information, visit their website, buttonskirack.com. The Button Ski Hanger is also available for purchase at amazon.com. So make your purchase today. The Button Ski Hanger is simply better for your skis. Welcome back, everybody, into the Basecamp podcast. Now joining us from beautiful Colorado with Zay Ski Boots, co-founders Karen and Rex Deitesfeld. Welcome aboard, gang.
Thank you so very much.
We appreciate it, Mike. Thank you very much for the invite, and hope to have a good conversation.
Absolutely. Rex, just first of all, what got you, what's your background into boots, and what made you decide, you know what, let's try this to make a go of it and become a commercially viable product that's here?
That's an interesting question. I've got 35 plus years of manufacturing industrial equipment, and had no reason to get into ski boots. I knew nothing about ski boots at the time. But back in about 1985, we had put together a molding system at our plant in Northglenn, Colorado, and we had overcapacity of the equipment, meaning, we decided to start making parts for other people because we didn't want to see the equipment idle. So, that's how we got into it and from a polyurethane standpoint. So I've got about 25 years of polyurethane experience. And then in 1985, when we were doing cold calls with regards to sales of custom-made parts through our polyurethane division that we had set up, I ran across Ed Chalmers, and Ed, at that point in time, was living in Boulder, Colorado, and had this unique idea called a radial closure ski boot. So that's how we got into it.
If I can add something. So it was a beginning of pneumatic conveying equipment, and that's what Rex started with. So at the age of 18, he took over the family company and had his first patent for an airlock system, which of course needed the urethane. So that gives you a little bit more. So at our height of our season of him creating projects, he got Owens Corning and
John's
Manville.
Yeah.
Everybody came to us to make their equipment. Even to the fact of, we went to London to put fibers into concrete for the channel system, and Conoco came to him to put pellets into the asphalt. So it sounds small, but we did a lot. Good background.
That's amazing.
Just what does it take though to try and build something and be able to competitively price it with the names that we all know and that we'll see in the lift lines?
You know, I think during the process of R&D, you always have to keep in mind those various variable costs. You know, we could have complicated the product and put a lot of widgets on it, but at the end of the day, for the volume that we're doing at this point in time, it doesn't warrant to make it offshore, because that's just adding a level of complexity. And with the current design of the boot, you know, there's not a whole lot of bells and whistles because it works as a system, and we felt that it didn't warrant the need for a walk mode at this point in time, because that's not our audience. So, you know, the liners and the buckles are all made in Italy. Everything else is processed here, either in our backyard or somewhere in North America.
Or the kitchen.
Or the kitchen.
That's where the best ideas come from.
You know, over a glass of wine, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly.
But you said Italy, which, you know, the Italians really created so much of the ski boot that we see today, even though there's very little manufacturing left in Italy from the ski boot end of the deal. But you also mentioned Ed Chalmers. Ed was the head of R&D for Lang when, you know, two little skiers named Phil and Steve Mayer were winning a whole bunch of medals, you know, back in the day. But in your bio, you also, Schwen Calmer, I believe is how you pronounce it, the founder of Zip Fit, another staple in the skiing marketplace today. How did they influence your thoughts about building this boot?
Well, since Ed and I go back to around 1985, when I was introduced to the radial closure concept or using a cable system, one of the things that I learned early on is the reason for the cable system is that in every front side four buckle ski boot, what ends up happening, there's a phenomenon as you flex forward in a ski boot, what ends up happening is the two ankle points bulge out, which causes heel lift. And so that was the premise of the radial closure design to begin with. So, you know, with regards to Ed and Sven getting together, the ski boot itself was developed between the talents of about 5 different engineers, Sven Coomer, Clinton Percy, Ed Chalmers, Proof of Concept, which are Nike and Adidas people. And so we all contributed at the end of the day for the various aspects of the boot that they were really good at, where their expertise lied. So with regards to, let's say, the toe box, Sven Coomer, you know, literally we argued probably for about 3 months back and forth during the R&D phase about the size of the toe box. Should the toes have lift at the very end, so on and so forth. And the radial closure was Ed Chalmers, you know, contribution, as well as what most people do not know regarding ski boots is many of the ski boots at the boot board level are not pronated, but posted on the medial side. And that was one of the contributions that Ed had said. He says, make the boot board on the boot board, make it flat to the world, if you may. So the toe is not posted in the Zay boot, which will allow a boot fitter to post it appropriately if 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 it needs it for the client.
That's interesting. I do have one question, especially for the listeners. I know what you're talking about, but Karen, maybe you can describe, we've talked, Rex just talked about the radial closure. What is a radial closure?
It's the wiring system that actually incorporates 360 all the way around. And it's lifting is on those cables. So you get a complete comfort. Our product is to do that, is to put your foot in comfortably on the bottom of the boot and keep it there. And when you make the slightest move, that closure slowly, like a cobra, wraps itself around comfortably so that you get your foot down. You feel that snow.
Well, let me add to that. So if you think about a ski boot, typically you have two buckles here, and then you have two buckles here. And what we've done is we've replaced the two buckles on the forefoot with cables, which they come through the heel, and this is in the open mode. When you go to ski, it locks the cables. So as you go into a turn, the cuff of this boot actually flexes forward and pulls up on each individual cable respectively. And then in turn, what it does is it clamps down on your foot and applies tension, so that not only are you applying tension to the top of the foot, but also, if you think about it from a clock perspective, at 2 o'clock and at 9 o'clock. So it's actually pulling the entire shell in. At the same time, it's helping, as I said before, it helps control the bulging of the boot at the ankle points that are shown here.
Gotcha.
Is it just just looking to get, is it one of those things that it just keeps the foot stable more than the tradition, what we've seen currently?
Right. So as you go into a turn, the cables tighten, and then when you're not in a turn, the opposite boot relaxes. So it's constantly tensioning during the turn, and it's holding your foot down comfortably instead of being locked in position. So that's why we call it an automatic tensioning system.
Gotcha. So, interesting name, Zay. Where'd it come from?
It's my maiden name. So when we had Intech, we were always entertaining, and I had come up with a hot buffalo wing sauce. This is back in the late 80s and early 90s, right? And we had a advertising firm come in, and we were entertaining, and these are better than New York's. These are awesome. So on a wild spree, I went to the local grocery store. I said, you have to tell me the truth. Is this marketable? And 8 weeks later, I was in the deli of King Soopers. And that was the start. And I had to put it to something. So we had Intech, and I know Rex well enough that I know it's not going to be just one product. So I just said Zay Products, and that's it.
So the fact of the matter is, it all starts in the kitchen.
It does.
The fact.
We're always cooking something.
Yeah.
I don't think Dalbello makes a buffalo wing sauce.
Well, I don't know.
Stranger things have happened.
Right?
Right?
It was called Schwings. Yeah. So from there, I still worked at Intech, and we had buffalo wing sauce. Then it was time for me to retire, and I said, "This is still open. If you still want to use it." So he stepped in and changed the queue number.
What a whale of a retirement job, creating a ski boot.
Right.
It's a labor of love.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Real quickly, Rex, there's a lot of different types of ski boots on the market. Okay.
Right.
We've got our four buckles. We've got our cabrios from K2, from Del Bello, from Roxa, which work extremely well. Rear entries back. Okay. Back to the old Hanson days. Yeah. Okay. They're back, that are working. Now the addition of BOA into, the traditional overlap boot. What makes Zay different than a BOA?
Well, a BOA is still considered a static system in my eyes, that it'd be comparable to a buckle boot. And the reason I say that is that once you dial in the tension that you want on your foot, it stays at that tension level. Whereas with the Zay boot, as we talked before, as you apply pressure to the cuff or the tongue of the boot, it literally automatically tensions around your foot. So it's constantly tensioning, loosening, loosening. And so with that being said, the professionals that have skied in both either a buckle boot or a BOA boot really don't notice a whole lot of difference, except maybe the BOA system is a little bit less tension on the top of the foot and provides a little comfort with regards to less impingement points or pain points in the ski boot.
That makes sense. The difference between a full wrap, where BOA really is just taking the place of two buckles. Right. I think BOA does give you that ability. I've spent a lot of time playing with them to fine tune click, but it doesn't change the overall wrap of the foot.
No, and unfortunately, with the BOA system, the feedback that I'm getting, I've never skied in them, but I can certainly understand where they're coming from, is that trying to find that exact tension point when to stop tensioning the cable on the system is a little bit difficult, especially when you're in and out of the boot as often as, if you're 100 days, it's very hard to find that sweet spot where it's always the same tension. And that's one of the things that the 23 plus professionals in the Zay Ski Boot say, once you dial in the correct tension on the back of the boot, you basically set it and forget it. You never mess around with the Zay Radial closure, because it snaps back into the same tensioning as you did, 2 or 3 or 4 days ago. So it also precludes you from having to buckle and unbuckle at the bottom of the lift because your feet are cold.
Sure.
Who are you looking to sell the product to? Like, is it the front side, back side? I mean, I look at it and I see a front side. Is that accurate, or are you looking to get everybody in the everybody on the mountain?
Originally when the boot was developed, I was thinking, I had a grandiose idea that this boot would go towards the World Cup racer and elite skiers, frontside skiers. Through the R&D, getting it on probably somewhere around 80 to 100 people's feet, PSI instructors started giving me feedback that this boot would be really good for maybe not the beginner because of the cost of the boot, but starting at an intermediate level all the way up to World Cup. So that's, depending upon the flex of the boot, which we can influence quite easily through the chemistry of our outer shell, we can make it as soft as, let's say, a 95 all the way up to 160. So the target of the boot is intermediate to World Cup.
If I can interject there. So in Vail, there's the Stedman Clinic, and they actually go in and make their own tooling for problems that happen on the mountain. compound fractures that you don't want, right? So we got together and put the boot through all of its paces, and their opinion is that it's the, what did they say, most it's not comfortable, the secure, the most secure that you can be, because it's constantly going with the flow. And that brought me to the little kids that are on the mountains, is that they are not using the right muscles. They're not training the right muscles for them to be the best that they can be. So in later in life, you're going to find out that all of a sudden your hip hurts, and it's caused from your skis or your ice skates or whatever you're doing, because you're only training that one product.
Well, and to add to that, during the development, one of the testers was Eric Schlope, who used to be on the U.S. ski team back in the day. One of the things
It wasn't that long ago, Rex. Let's not date us.
Ouch.
That depends upon who you're talking to. Some of these guys are quite old in their eyes. Yeah, but no, after Eric skied in it for 2 days, the very first time, he called me about 3 weeks later and said, you know, these boots would be really good for children. And the reason is because kids don't have the muscle mass or the biomechanics fully developed to influence how a boot skis. And so they end up developing bad habits right out of the gate, no pun intended. And so since the cuff of the boot in the Zay boot articulates, it allows them to get into the right skiing position, so that later on in life, they're not relearning how to run gates and so on and so forth. So yeah, that was a nice attribute that Eric brought to the table.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I've got a question for you, because it all comes down to fit. Okay. The foundation of any skier is their ski boot, the boot board, the footbed, yada yada. So fit wise, what was the overall goal of how this should fit, and what is the last and the volume of the boot? Because we know in the ski world, in the ski boot world, we have your 97, 98 lasted boots. Okay, you're narrow. You've got your 100 lasted, which we're 90% of the world. And then you've got your wide boots of 102 up to 104, 106. Right. Where does this fall into the echelon, Rex?
With regards to the last itself, I decided a 98 last would be about the right size, because that fits a men's size, shoe size C, if you may. But with the advent of the larger toe box in the Zay Ski Boot, what it does is it allows for a more voluminous or a wider foot feel. So we're able to take those people that ski in a 100, maybe a 101 last, and put them into a 98 last like ours without having impingement problems. So with regards to the volume, we consider it still a low volume boot. It's not made for real high arch people, but we've accommodated that in the design so that the overlaps of the boots can accommodate some of those people that have a higher arch area of the foot. So
about the boot board.
Oh, we'll get to that.
We can get into it now if you'd like.
Okay, fair enough.
You're on.
Yeah, keep going. Let's get get the the specifications.
So where the boot board came from for us was originally in R&D. We used just a plastic sheet of material, and on probably the first 2 or 3 Olympians that had skied in the boot, they said the boot was just way too twitchy. I equate that to like a Formula One, instead of thinking about wanting to turn, it actually auto turned, if there is such a thing. So the goal for us was to detune this boot because it was too twitchy for the average skier or even an advanced skier. So one of the things that we came up with is that the boot board itself, if you think about the boot board being underneath the liner of the ski boot, so you have to pull the liner out of the boot to get to the boot board, running from the heel to the toe on the medial side or the ball of the foot side, what we do is we put like a 3 millimeter piece of foam that, like I said, it runs from the heel to the toe, and that detunes the boot for those that are intermediate skiers. But also what it does is it allows your foot to articulate inside the boot, meaning that if this is the ball of my foot here and I'm going into a turn, the foam on the medial side or the ball foot of the side of the foot actually dips down and gives you a little ankle flexion inside the boot as you're skiing. And originally when people looked at that, just, on dry land, they said, that doesn't work. And we've had many people go, oh my God, this is amazing, because it does give you a little bit more foot mobility, where you don't think your foot moves, but it actually does in any of the boots that have been designed to date. So
it's kind of like being comfortable yoga wise. You want your toes to be splayed, you want to find your balance and be grounded. And that's where that extra padding, it's like a dimmer switch.
Well, this might start a new trend in the ski world, just like Hoka created a brand new trend in the running shoe world, because that was a changeable moment in running shoes.
Right.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
No, I agree. I totally agree.
What kind of plastics go into it, and why do you choose the way you do? Like into the shell.
That's a really good question. So it goes back to Ed Chalmers and myself, having been in the cast polyurethane business for all these years. The original Lang ski boots back in the day when they were built in Broomfield, Colorado, those were cast. And so a decision was made with regards to what type of molding we used, because the thing with injection molded polyurethane shells, so let's just say the Nordicas, the Dalbellos, your traditional ski boots are all made out of injection grade polyurethane. But the problem with that technology, as we all know, is that as the temperature starts becoming lower and lower, the boots actually stiffen up. And the reason that is when they go to make the injection molded pellet itself at the manufacturing level, think about it as two chemical structures. So you've got a hard segment and a soft segment, okay? And when they blend the material up, what ends up happening, making the pellet, the manufacturer, the BASFs of the world, Convestros of the world, they burn off the soft segment of the two chemical chains.
Cures quicker.
Well, not only does it cure quicker, but also what you end up with is two hard segments that are put together. And why that's important with regards to how we do things is that ski boots in general typically stiffen up as it gets colder. And I did not want that. I wanted, in our molding technology, to be able to control the soft segment of the chemical composition. So in a Zay boot, you end up having a hard segment, chemical structure, and a soft segment. And if you think about it, it's like a rubber band. The soft segment of the Zay Ski Boot, actually, as you put pressure upon the shell, it minutely stretches like a rubber band, that soft segment, and then snaps back together. So one of the attributes that we get from cast molding is that not only can we influence the size and the length of the soft segment, but also it provides the skier with energy to initiate the next turn. So these ski boots, at the end of the day, provide additional snap, rebound, so that when you go from one turn, let's say a left turn to the right turn, at the apex of the turn, that boot is loading up, it's stretching the molecules of the shell, and allows for less energy from the skier to get into the turn. So there's a lot more to it, but at the end of the day, it allows us to make a boot at a 98 flex all the way up to 170 if, you know, we should elect to make it. So
well, I'm gonna go on a little diversion here.
yeah.
Okay, we talk flex. Okay, whether it be a 95 ladies flex or a 130, go out and just rail a ski flex.
Right.
How do you decide, since there is no standard in the ski world, how do you decide what is a 120 flex? Tough question there.
Well, since there is no ISO standard or ASTM standard with regards to flex patterns, I would say it really is very subjective. And when I say subjective, we would, during the R&D phase, we would test, let's say, a World Cup, ROSI 150, compare it to what's closest to what we have as far as a flex pattern. And it's very subjective, unfortunately, the flex of the boot, at least in the Zay ski boots, when you put them on at room temperature, when you're, first buying them, the flex pattern is going to remain constant all the way down to, let's say 30 degrees, 25 degrees, and everything in between room temperature and that temperature. So the flex of the boot will remain the same as compared to our competitors, where, as we all know, will stiffen up as it gets colder.
Sure. Well, it's interesting. We have been out of leather boots for an awful long time here. And for an industry like the ski industry not to set a standard when we have a DIN standard, but we've never gone that way. And unfortunately, maybe you can lead the charge for that for me too, Rex, because I believe there needs to be an industry-wide standard.
I think you're right, Mike.
Yeah, I don't know if I have enough energy to try to convert the industry.
The Europeans are pretty tough, if you didn't know that.
That's one of the reasons that we elected to make it in America and use American engineers. Yeah.
How much actually, because you mentioned made in America, how much of it is it simply just everything other than the cables?
The two items that are not made domestically in North America are the liners and the buckles on the cuff. Everything else is made in the United States. Yeah,
that's pretty cool, considering all the Italian manufacturers have moved to Romania or wherever else to produce boots at this point. Right. Well, let's talk about the liner, because the shell's one thing. Liner is equally as important.
Yeah.
Give us some background.
What was that?
Give us some background on that liner.
So the background on the liner is we tried to accomplish the following. If you look at it, us older guys, Mike, I'm including you in on this, okay?
How about Keith? Come on.
I'm not. Keith looks much younger than you or I. But that being said,
You can't see our producer. He looks the oldest.
I resemble that remark.
No, the way I equate the liner is that I'll put it in car terms. You know, back in the 70s and 80s, you know, we all grew up with a Chevy or a Buick car, and they all had bench seats that were soft and cushy, and you know, you'd go over a bump and you'd, right? And so I thought there was something better than that, and that's what traditionally manufacturers still today use, is a real soft, cushy foam. And I didn't like that attribute. I wanted something that would fit snug, that would last all day as far as a fit without pressure points. So I started investigating memory foams, something that would be similar to, let's say, a Tempur-Pedic. And then I thought, you know, it's more like a BMW seat that we're after, or a Mercedes-Benz type of seating, where it's firm, but it's also yet comfortable. You can go longer on a road trip in a BMW than, you know, your typical 1970 bench seat that would be in your mother's Chevy. So we ended up incorporating Tempur-Pedic type foam throughout the entire liner, so that with the heat of the foot, it would warm it up and it would mold directly to the foot structure that was being put in it. So yeah, it's once you get in the boot, and it goes for very narrow lasted people to very wide lasted people and everything in between, there is a comfort level that people, when they first put their boot in, put their foot into the boot, they can't believe how comfortable it is without pinch points. And that's because of not only the shape of the shell, but also the type of foam, memory foam, Tempur-Pedic style foam that we use on the interior.
That's cool.
Yeah.
We're do you have any distribution out here in the East yet? Like, are we gonna be able to get our feet in there yet, or is it still a year away? Or
No,
where are we now, and what's the future hold?
Absolutely. So with regards to that, we do have about 4 or 5 reps teed up in various segments of the United States, along with Europe. And our first foray into the market is the resort markets, not so much the metropolitan areas. And there's a big distinction between the two. Typically, resorts will hold up the MSRP, if you may, of a ski boot, whereas in the metro stores, typically they start discounting them once the, you know, Labor Day comes around. And we are a high-end ski boot, and we're going to be offering at least 3 sizes this season: a 26, a 27, and a 28, up in the New England area, the Northwest area, as well as parts of Western Europe. So they'll be in limited supply. As we all know, the industry took a beating last year, not only on hard goods, but the general health of the industry is such that we're not expecting, you know, huge numbers this year, but next year we'll get after it.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, you brought up high-end product. What are we looking at as a cost, you know, relatively? Do you have a costing or a price structure at this point?
Yeah, the price structure of the boot will start at $850 for the 110 version, which we call a Z1, and it'll go up to $975 for our Z3 model, or the 130 Flex. Now,
so that honestly, you know, I'm skiing on a head core right now,
Okay.
130. Okay, that MSRP is at $1,000. So that's
Yeah.
not out of the
Yeah.
mix.
It's in the ball, it's
No,
in the
it's in the
ballpark with a known solid boot that you know what you're gonna get.
Well, and U.S. made. So I think that's awesome. Well, Rex and Karen, that is outstanding. I am so psyched that somebody is not just producing skis in this country, because we know every garage has a ski producer in it these days, but somebody is actually going back to where we can make a difference.
Right.
The ski boot is still number one. It's still where the performance is. As I've always said, all skis go downhill, but not all boots fit. And that is the difference. Both Keith and I want to thank you guys for joining us from Colorado. Any snow out there?
We're getting inklings of it, just dustings at this point in time, like at around 12,000 feet. So,
Well, all we're doing is asking Steamboat and Snowbird and all those guys to share some this year with the East. That's all we're asking.
Yeah,
you guys got pummeled last
you
year.
did.
Yeah.
You know what? The end of the year was epic. The beginning of the year was epic rain. But we're going to do it this year. It's going to be a great season. The weather patterns have changed. We want to thank you for joining us on the Basecamp. We look forward to seeing the boot, skiing in the boot, and hearing about all the successes moving forward.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much.
Well, we appreciate it, all of you, for inviting us, and hopefully in the very near future, you'll be wrapping your foot in comfort and performance, and we appreciate your time.
Fantastic. That's it. That's Rex and Karen from beautiful Colorado with Zay Boots. We'll be back right after this.
Are you serious about playing your sport in college? Do you need a flexible education that allows you to maintain your practice and competition schedules while also preparing you to succeed at the next level? You should check out the University of Nebraska High School. UNHS is accredited and offers more than 100 online courses, including NCAA-approved courses to protect your academic eligibility. Students could earn a UNHS diploma or take a single course for transfer credit. Courses are college prep, self-paced, and available 24/7, 365. Enroll anytime and take up to a year to complete a course. Visit highschool.nebraska.edu today.
If you want to be inspired and informed on everything about the New England ski and outdoor scene, then you need to check out skijournal.com. Skijournal.com delivers daily content on breaking industry news, tips, gear, dining, travel, entertainment, as well as all archived episodes of the Emmy-nominated New England Ski Journal TV show and the Basecamp podcast. And don't forget to subscribe to New England Ski Journal, the longest-running regional ski magazine in the country. New England Ski Journal's award-winning writers and photographers bring all 4 seasons to your door with best-in-class coverage on skiing and the outdoors. Log on to skijournal.com and click on the subscribe button to get New England Ski Journal mailed to you today. New England Ski Journal is a Siemens Media publication. Siemens Media. Inspiring. Informative. Insightful.
So, Keith, what did you learn about ski boots today being not a boot guy?
Just how different it is. What they're trying to do, just give you both the stability with the comfort, and in a way that benefits the skier. And again, I think when they described it with the children made sense. That's how they're going to learn how to be a better skier, because the way the cushion, it's hard to explain. The cushion balances, each movement of their foot.
Well, plastics matter by all means, and where the hinge points are on boots. So if you look at your ankle, that was part of, because I sold Del Bello and Roxa boots as a rep. When you look at where the pivot point is on 4-buckle boots. They're fairly high, yet our ankles pivot much lower. So that was an interesting statement, especially, using the Steadman Clinic as a benchmark. I mean, let's just go to what I would consider one of the premier in the world. So I thought that was interesting, and I'm glad you picked up on that.
It was just one, it was one of those things that, hey, let's see what else is out there and how it can be improved. You can always try and it's not so much perfect, but you can always improve upon what we have, and that's what they're trying to do it, and they're making a go of it, and it'll be interesting to see where we'll be able to find them, which resorts we'll be able to pick them out at.
Well, yeah, I think, well, I'll tell you what I think in a second is the most intriguing part of the boot, but I think their philosophy to go to the mountains, because boot fitting is still an art up in the mountains, but it's also where, we more and more people on the upper end want to have boots fitted where they ski. So if they have problems, they can go in. It's always tough. It was tough when I was at Ski Market. If somebody was in Colorado skiing and had a problem, I had to send them to friends that had shops, whether it be in Snowbird, whether it be in Steamboat or whatever. I had to direct them to fix little issues that I just couldn't fix from Boston.
Right.
Okay, it's always an issue. But I think what intrigues me most about the boot is what I took out of this. There's a static and there's actually a dynamic part to this boot, which you don't find traditionally in a ski boot. Boots are static. Okay, you buckle them down, whether it be a boa, whether it be a 3-piece shell, whether it be a 2-piece shell, overlap. They are static in that you buckle them down, everything stays the same until you buckle it more, unbuckle it, readjust it, or whatever. The dynamic part of this, what I got out of it, is that because of the cable is a radial, and as you flex forward, everything tightens. So now think about it. You're cranking down Superstar at Killington, okay? Arcing a GS turn, and you want to get more power out of that ski. You lean in, you flex forward, that you're clamping in the forefoot. So that shell's becoming closer to your foot as you're cranking through that GS turn. That's going to automatically add power to that ski.
Right.
And that's what is totally unique. Whether it can be mass produced, time will tell.
We'll find out.
But
over the next couple of years.
Yep, hey, I applaud Karen and Rex for taking on this project. I know it's been a labor of love. And what else did you take from that conversation? There's one other thing I took. See if you catch it.
The kitchen.
The kitchen.
Yeah, it's always, that's always where the ideas come from.
A glass of wine and cooking is where the next great idea is going to come in the ski world. And I hope one of our listeners is the one that comes up with it.
That's right. Give us a call if you do.
Right. I want to be part of it, and I want royalties for suggesting it. So that's going to be it for this episode of the Basecamp podcast. Keith, are you stoked?
I'm getting there. Yeah, considering where we are in the season, yeah. We've already got snow on the ground.
We're into October, man. It's time to...
It's ramp up season.
It's up well, I've got another question. What are you doing to get in shape right now?
I've been hiking.
You better hike, climb, go to Blue Hills, go to Wachusett, go to wherever.
I saw a bear coming down the trails at Wildcat just before, right around Labor Day.
You know what? They're trying to fuel up because it's hibernation time.
Have you seen the squirrels in the backyard?
I've seen
bananas.
I've seen the acorns, which are everywhere in southern New Hampshire, and Old Wise Tail. We're going to have one whale of a winter. So that's going to be it for the Basecamp podcast. Until next time, enjoy the day.
New England Ski Journal's Basecamp is a Siemens Media podcast. Siemens Media. Inspiring, informative, insightful.